Hi guys, it is me Ina, and for today's video, I'll be talking about the books I bought during quarantine. This video is gonna be something different since I don't talk a lot on my channel and it's the first time I'm doing this, so bear with me. I used to read about 4 to 5 books in a year, and when quarantine started, I found myself having so much time. I would scroll through my phone for hours and it got to the point where I became bored. So reading suddenly popped into my mind. Like, why not read? I searched book recommendations on YouTube, and at that point I was listing all of them down and was really excited. Like I was diving into this unknown new world. The 21 books I'll be showing you today are quite known since I searched them up before buying, making sure the reviews are good because books are damn expensive. So sit back, drink something, and let's begin. The first 4 books on my list are from the same author, which is by Haruki Murakami, who is a Japanese contemporary writer. I've heard about him in the past since his books are always displayed in bookstores, but I didn't really care back then because I wasn't interested in reading. His books are geared towards fiction, realism, and magical realism, so it has this fantasy vibe, and it also has romance, thrill, drama, and a bit of action too. For the first book, this is Norweigan Wood by Haruki Murakami. This is one of his most popular works, and this is actually the first book I read during quarantine. It follows the story of Toru, who is a quiet and serious young college student in Tokyo, who is devoted to Nayoko, a beautiful and introverted young woman, but their mutual passion is marked by the death of their best friend years before. Toru begins to adapt to campus life, and this was set in the late 1960s, a period when Japanese students were protesting against those in authority. Toru faces loneliness and isolation, and on the other hand, Nayoko finds pressure and responsibilities of life unbearable. As she retreats further into her own world, Toru finds himself reaching out to others and drawn to a fiercely independent and sexually liberated young women. When you search this up on the internet, it provides a genre, love and coming of age, and those words seem too light to describe this book since this is dark and depressing. It provides stages of existential and inexpressible pain felt by the characters, and death also revolves around the story. This was my first novel from Murakami, and I was instantly blown away by just the first page of the book at how beautiful, imaginative, and thought-provoking his writing style is. The characters have a lot of self-monologue going on, and he's able to capture human emotions and feelings of isolation, loneliness, and heartbreaks. This book is actually considered as one of his normal works since it's very straightforward and it doesn't deal with the usual surrealistic themes. If you're planning on reading Murakami, I would recommend this one as a starter. My next book is Kafka on the Shore by Haruki Murakami once again. This is about 2 characters, a teenage boy, Kafka Tamura, who runs away from home, either to escape a gruesome prophecy or to search for his long-missing mother and sister. And we also have this aging man called Nakata, who never recovered from a wartime affliction and lost some of his memories, and he is now drawn towards Kafka for unknown reasons. And as their paths converge, the reason for that convergence becomes clear, and Murakami unfolds us to this world where cats talk and fish fall from the sky. So yeah, this one, it has a supernatural and magical realism going on. It gets really weird. Even though it's weird, I consider this as my favorite one out of all the 4 books I've read so far. This is a page turner since you would be really confused with what's happening with the story, but as soon as you keep reading, it makes sense. After finishing it, I thought about it for 2 to 3 days, I was lost in this world full of questions. And if you've read this one, there's a Komura library here. A library that I dream of going, even though it's not real. It's such a nice place based from the description of what Murakami gave. Yeah, that's Kafka on the Shore. Such a nice book. For my next book, this is The Wind Up Bird Chronicle by Haruki Murakami. In a Tokyo suburb, a young man named Toru Okada searches for his wife's missing cat and then for his wife as well. As these searches intersect, he encounters a bizarre group of allies and antagonists. This is an astonishingly imaginative detective story, an account of a disintegrating marriage, and a revelation of the buried secrets from Japan during World War II. For this book, it took me a while to finish since it's very thick. It's about 600 pages, and also I didn't love the story very much. I heard that people in their late 20s and early 30s tend to adore this book better than those in their early 20s like me, and I suppose because of the themes it deals with, maybe the older ones can relate to it much better. This one has a lot of fantasy elements and it's very mysterious, something out of this world. You would have a lot of questions while reading this one. It feels like the world, is different. So yeah, I still somehow enjoyed it. There's this one review I read on Goodreads and it exactly depicts this story. She says it's a lonely world full of half-finished stories, abrupt departures, missed connections, and deep silences. For my next book, I have Colorless, Tsukuru, Tazaki, and His Years of Pilgrimage by Haruki Murakami. In this story, it follows a young man haunted by a great loss of dreams and nightmares that have unintended consequences for the world around us, and of a journey in dealing with the ghosts of his past and events that traumatized him a long time ago, which is necessary to mend the present. Here, Murakami gives us a story of love, friendship, and heartbreak for the ages. So this one, it's a story about, loss, identity, and finding questions to your answers. It felt really sad for the main character here. It deals with heavy themes, and I feel like, almost every Murakami book does deal with a heavy theme. I didn't love this one very much. It was pretty average, although I still managed to finish it for only 3 days. This novel didn't come with a lot of magical realism, but there are still subjects about, dreams that might not be dreams, and the reality is slightly blurred, something like that. And if I would rank these 4 books by Murakami, I would obviously pick Kafka on the Shore, Norweigan Wood, Wind Up Bird Chronicle, and Colorless. I just think Murakami is such a great author. He has this wonderful blend of metaphysical and magical realism with ordinary life and people. I have a lot to say about his work, but let's keep it at that. For the 5th book, I have Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. And this one is fiction, but it still plays in the real world in terms of the social issue it tackles. In the story, we have Kiko, who is 36 years old. She's never had a boyfriend and she's been working in the same convenience store for 18 years. Her parents wish she'd get a better job while her friends wonder why she won't get married. Amidst these all, Kiko knows what makes her happy and she's not going to let anyone take her away from her convenience store. A fun fact about Murata, the author, she actually worked in a convenience store 3 times a week, basing her novel from her experiences. This is told from a point of view of the customer stepping in the store. It also surrounds us with the familiar sights, sounds, and smells of a place we all know too well. As what I said earlier, this book has subjects on, the illusions and expectations of society and our human agreements of what's considered a successful life or not. And a lot of commentary says this book was funny, cute, and quirky, but as for me, I don't really think it was funny, and maybe because this is originally in the Japanese language, it was lost in translation, or the cultural difference of like jokes in Japan. Maybe that's the reason why. And this was a short read, but I enjoyed it very much. The next book is Tuesdays with Morrie by Mitch Albom. This one is really popular and it's very recommended. And with the author Mitch Albom, I only read his novel 5 People You Meet in Heaven, which I really loved. It follows the story of Morrie, a lovable college professor who in his late 60s finds out he is dying. The story of his last few weeks on Earth is told by Mitch, one of Morrie's former students who happens to bump into him during his final days. This was written in a very simple style, and you know, that simplicity reaches you straight away. And here it shows the values upheld by Morrie, his views on the ground realities of life, loving others, being a better human being, and maybe, yeah, accepting death also. I do think some points are cliche and predictable, but I still think it needs to be heard. The next book is For One More Day by Mitch Albom. And here we have the main character, Charlie Benetto, who lost every important thing in his life. It's destroyed by alcohol, regret, and he loses his job, he leaves his family, and you know, with all these problems, he decided to end his life. But before that happens, he encounters his dead mother, explores the question, what would you do if you could spend another day with a loved one? I didn't love this as much as Tuesdays with Morrie. It has this emotional, touching tone throughout the book, which isn't really for me. I mean, it didn't have a lasting effect. For my 7th book, I have The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. That cover is just so pretty. What? Again, this is a very popular book. In the story, we have Santiago, an Andalusian shepherd boy who desires to travel in search of a worldly treasure. His quest will lead him to riches far different and satisfying than he ever imagined. His journey teaches us about the wisdom of listening to our hearts, recognizing opportunity, and most importantly, to follow our dreams. I actually enjoyed this book and I was surprised to see reviews on Goodreads. A lot of people were disappointed. I mean, it has over 2 million reviews, I think. I see this as a self-help book since it gives us a general idea of personal development, your purpose in life, peace, and happiness. It also has themes on spirituality, destiny, and dreams. And if you're the person who aims high, you know, you're chasing your dreams and all that, this is for you. And personally, I liked it. It has nice points. For my next book, I have Circe by Madeline Miller. I haven't read this, but again, it's recommended a lot, so I had to buy it even if I don't even read Greek mythology. Description alone, I think it seems pretty exciting, so I'm excited to read this one. For my 10th book, I have 1984 by George Orwell. I have a lot to say about this book. It's scary in a sense that it deals with dystopia. It creates this imaginary world, a society in which there is great suffering and injustice. This was also written in 1949, but it's still relevant today. You can see the similarities with society. The novel also examines the role of truth and facts within politics and how they are easily manipulated, distorted. Like you can see it now with our government, politics, and also the media. Apart from the politics side, storytelling is also incredible. It takes you on another world of Mr. Smith, the main character. It's somehow an uncomfortable read. There are a lot of parts that are terrifying, but I still think the message is effective and powerful. The next one is A Northern Light by Jennifer Donnelly. For this one, I didn't research it. I just randomly got it from book sale and I got interested upon reading the description. It it had the themes murder and mystery. It follows the story of 16-year-old Matty, who has big dreams but little hope of seeing them come true. Desperate for money, she takes a job at the Glenmore, where hotel guest Grace Brown asks her to burn a bundle of secret letters. But when Grace's drowned body is fished from the lake, Matty discovers the letters reveal the grim truth behind a murder. This is a coming-of-age story set in 1906 against the backdrop of a murder that actually happened in real life. But the story didn't really revolve around the murder as soon as I read it. It's more about Matty, the main character, with stories of triumph and perseverance. It has subjects on race issues, struggle with poverty, family drama, and women issues, especially that time since it's the 1900s. I also felt like this book was a combination of To Kill a Mockingbird because of the setting and also racism, along with Little Women since the main character Matty had a lot of sisters. I unexpectedly enjoyed the book very much. For the next book, I have The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. This is a psychological thriller novel. I found this at the book sale and was surprised to see it there because I think this one's quite known. It follows the story of Harriet Wanger, heir of one of Sweden's wealthiest families who disappeared over 40 years ago. All these years later, her uncle continues to seek the truth. So he hires Mikael Blomqvist, a journalist recently trapped by a libel conviction, to investigate. He is aided by the peers and tattooed punk prodigy Lisbeth Salander. Together they tap into a vein of immorality and astonishing corruption. It's gonna be a slow ride for the first 100 pages of the book since you're still being introduced to this enormous family and some background events. But as soon as you get on with that, you'll find yourself wanting to keep reading more. I don't read a lot of mystery thrillers, but this one was surprisingly interesting. The next one is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This is another murder mystery book which I have not read yet. In the description it says, for years rumors of the Marsh Girl have haunted Barkley Clove, a quiet town on the North Carolina coast. In the late 1969, when handsome Chase Andrews is found dead, the locals immediately suspect Kia Clark, so-called Marsh Girl. This is a heartbreaking coming-of-age story and a surprising tale of possible murder. The next one is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This book follows 4 college classmates broke adrift and sustained only by their friendship and ambition as they move to New York in search of fame and fortune. It's about brotherly bonds and a depiction of love in the 21st century. It's a novel about the families we are born into and those that we make for ourselves. This is a book that's being talked about a lot. Many people say that you have to prepare yourself before reading this one since it has triggering topics. I've also heard descriptions of it saying that it's devastating, painful, and also moving. Pretty excited. The next book is Outliers, The Story of Success by Malcolm Gladwell. First off, this is not a self-help book. It's not like how to be successful in life. No. This book asks the question, why do some people succeed far more than others? What makes high achievers different? Success has always been narrowed down to hard work and intelligence. We pay attention to that and little attention to where they are from, their culture, family, their upbringing, and other factors that aid a person to become successful. Personally, it somehow shifted the way I understand and view success. There's this one part of the book that talked about plane crashes, and it was quite a shock upon reading that. It's a great book in gaining a new perspective about this thing we are chasing for. The next book this is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. The title's quite funny because it's like you have no friends. This book is over 90 years old already, but People read it because they think it's still relevant and it applies to modern society. The description is also funny because I just finished talking about the book Outliers. The only book you need to lead you to success. The next one is the Book of Joy, and this was recommended by my dear friend Tracy. It was the result of a 7-day meeting between two old friends, the Dalai Lama, who is a Buddhist monk, and Desmond Tutu, who is a South African archbishop. Both of them have fought non-violently against oppression in their countries for over 50 years, and this led to millions of people in their spiritual journeys. In those days, they discussed one of life's important questions, which is, how do we find joy in the face of life's inevitable suffering? This book is not purely spiritual. It acknowledges findings on science, research, and psychology, and you don't have to be a Christian or a Buddhist for these points to become effective. It talks about human nature, which applies for everyone. Religion shouldn't be a barrier with this kind of books. I'm currently reading this one, and so far I'm enjoying it. I think it's very timely with our situation now, and also this is a hardbound cover. It looks so pretty. What? For the next book, this is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen R. Covey. This was written 50 years ago, but people still read it. This self-help book is highly recommended, so I just bought it, and maybe I'd read it when I feel unmotivated in life. I don't know. The next one is The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and this was written in the 6th century. This book is composed of 13 chapters, and each one is devoted to a different set of skill related to warfare and how it applies to military strategy and tactics. It focuses on the principle that it is possible to outsmart your foe mentally by thinking very carefully about process before resorting to physical battle. Tzu argued that the chances of victory is greatly increased. Tzu's philosophy is translated well to modern day scenarios, especially in terms of the corporate and business world. I bought this because it's a classic and it's cheap, so why not? The next book is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandra Dumas. For the story, it follows Edmond Dantes, who was thrown in a secret dungeon for a crime he has not committed. In there, he learns a great hoard of treasure in the Isle of Monte Cristo, and he becomes determined not only to escape, but also find the treasure to plot the destruction of the 3 men that imprisoned him. That description seems pretty intriguing. Oh, and also I only got this for 50 pesos, so that is a steal. For the last book, this is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, and this is another classic. Also, I bought this for only 50 pesos. This novel is very famous. A lot of people consider this as their favorite book of all time. For the story, we have Dorian, who is a good-natured young man, until he discovers the power of his own exceptional beauty. As he gradually sinks deep into a foolish, glamorous world of selfish luxury, he apparently remains physically unchanged by the stresses of his corrupt lifestyle and untouched by age. But up in his attic, hidden behind the curtain, his portrait tells a different story. I'm currently reading this one, so I don't have much to say about it, but one thing I've noticed is how poetic the writing style is, even with just the first sentence. Let me read it. The studio was filled with the rich odor of roses, and when the light summer wind stirred amidst the trees of the garden, there came through the open door the heavy scent of the lilac or the more delicate perfume of the pink flowering thorn. Beautiful. Deep. Finally, we are done. Those are all the 21 books I bought during quarantine. As I got back into reading, life became much more interesting. Gaining all these thoughts and new perspectives from wonderful authors. The feeling is just amazing. If you have book recommendations, you can comment it down below so everyone is able to see it and, you know, discover these beautiful books waiting to be read. I hope you enjoyed the video. I had so much fun. See you on the next one. Bye! I'm so tired. Yeah, it's not finished yet. Okay, bye-bye.